And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Tuesday evening. Lots to get to around Major League Baseball, including the Pittsburgh Pirates deciding to option the struggling closer, formerly an all-star level closer in David Bednar. The Rangers get back on the right track. Their offense, though, is still struggling, though. Across Major League Baseball, offense is down. We'll discuss that and much more ahead here next at the Upside. Well, there's lots to get to tonight. As I mentioned, the Pittsburgh Pirates deciding to send down David Bednar. That sounds like they're going to go with a mixture of a committee anyway in that closer role. Dennis Santana, along with a couple other guys, could be holding down the job there. Leads you to believe that maybe, just maybe, they should have made the decision this offseason to upgrade their offense when they had the chance. While Bednar still had some remaining value, that value is now gone. Obviously, they'd love to get an all-star level closer back. Hopefully, he goes down to the minor leagues and figures things out, whatever the case may be. The fact remains is that the Pittsburgh Pirates can't score enough runs. They can't stop them from scoring once they get late into games. And now one of their best assets as far as a relief pitcher has squandered any and all value he had left. Just a tough situation for the Pirates. You can kind of see how they're already regretting their decision not to make a move earlier this offseason. From what I've seen, they had multiple offers on the table from different clubs at different points this very offseason for David Bednar. With the struggles that he's had, I guarantee you those offers are no longer on the table. Now, the other item I really wanted to get into today was how offense is really down across Major League Baseball. It's not just one or two teams. It's not just one or two types of players. It's down pretty much across the sport. Of course, we've seen some really crazy games where you get a 14-run game from the Reds, or we get some games in the 10-run range from the Diamondbacks, or we do get those kinds of games. But in general, offense is down. You look at all the guys that are routinely putting up big numbers. Yordan Alvarez is the Marcus Semiens of the world, Corey Seagers of the world. A bunch of guys really are struggling this year. Now, the Yankees are one team that seems immune to that so far. They did lose today. Seems like they might be coming back down to earth, at least for them anyway. I think that's proven to be a little bit more of a function of the Brewers starting pitching right now. Peralta was the one Brewers starter that was able to hold his own somewhat with the Yankees. Outside of that, they've really struggled to get some good performances out of that starting rotation. But in general, outside of that stretch against that Brewers pitching staff, offense is down. And I'm just curious to see if it's just an anomaly. We usually do see these types of issues early in the season. I will say that. It's still early. It's only been, a week anyway, less than a week since Major League Baseball had their opening day. I do expect offense to improve as we go through the year. People shaking off the cobwebs, whatever the case may be. But I'm a little bit surprised that so many of the teams that are out there are struggling with their offense. Now, pitching has been really good for a lot of different teams. I mean, who would have thought that the Rockies and who was the other team? The White Sox, through 49 innings from their starting pitching, would have allowed only 2 earned runs so far entering the day this season. That's just incredible pitching anyway from 2 pitching staffs that were not expected to be good at all. And they've been some of the best in the game. Again, I kind of chalk this up to kind of fluky, short sample size, type of thing. But I do wonder if the offense being down early here is an indication of what's to come for the rest of the season. I do think we'll see some guys tick up. I don't think Yordan Alvarez is this bad. I don't think Marcus Semien is this bad. But the question is, how high does it really rise? And do we see the run production that we saw in years past? Or is this the beginning of a next wave of offensive talent that's going to have to come into the league here? The league is very young overall. There's a lot of good young rookies coming. But I'm just really surprised to see so many teams struggling out of the gate offensively. Welcome in, Holly. Welcome in, Ethan. Simeon in trouble, man. True, but he's not alone. Look at the entire Atlanta Braves squad. I mean, that squad can't hit their way out of a wet paper bag right now. John Heyman was kind of poking a little bit of fun at it. I don't think he was necessarily being mean-spirited about it. I mean, he just took a picture of the scoreboard and you saw nothing but 100 batting averages and below. Just not a good time there in Atlanta. Gil Altuve still batting over 400, so you know. I will say Altuve has always been pretty good as far as an offensive player. He's never been one player I've worried about as far as his offense. I've always thought of him as kind of a super high 300 average guy, sometimes even in that 400 range. Kind of what we thought Luis Arraez could have been this year. He is also struggling as well. So it's good to see at least some guys getting off to nice starts, but in general, offense is down. We'll kind of put a bookmark in this discussion because I want to see how it goes for one more week before we make any big grand generalizations about what's to hold or what's going to be coming this season. But if offense doesn't improve over the next week, I'm going to have some serious concerns, not only about individual players, but about offense as a whole in the sport. Again, it's too early to sound those alarms, but we got to start paying attention to it now and just see how the next week or so goes. Because my worry is that offense being down could really change things up from what we thought was going to happen this year. We might see some really surprising teams make it to the postseason if they don't shake off the cobwebs offensively. Ethan Pillar should lead off versus lefty starting pitching. I thought Marcus Semien should have been out of that leadoff spot late last year. I thought that decision should have been made. I think Semien would be a great hitter in, say, the number 5, 6 spot in the order, but you're paying him so much money. He's the captain of your team. You don't really want to take his value away or take his leadership value away in that locker room. I think Semien would be able to handle the promotion, or demotion anyway, and I do think there should be some discussion about who should be leading off for this team. Very few bats are working right now in the Rangers lineup. Wyatt Langford, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, and Kevin Pillar are pretty much the only ones really going well right now for Texas. We'll have to see if that changes over the next week or so as well. A few other news and notes from around Major League Baseball. Max Scherzer got a cortisone shot in his thumb. Hopefully that will work for him, but this is more of a stopgap measure to me. I do think he'll have this recurring issue, and this very well could be his final season. Just saw the game go final. 3-1, the Dodgers take it over the Atlanta Braves. Their struggles continue. You get the 80-game suspension announced yesterday for Jurickson Profar. Sounds like Ronaldo Lopez is going to be out due to a surgery, going to be taking him out past the All-Star break. Excuse me. And you can't really hit your way out of a wet paper bag. So where exactly is the bright spot right now for the Atlanta Braves? You're 0-6. You've struggled against two really good teams. I will give them that. The Dodgers and the Padres, they've really struggled. Could they even out? Absolutely. But the offense is more of an issue for me for the Atlanta Braves. Where's Matt Olson's production? Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris. These are guys that should be producing in that lineup. Austin Riley. Jurickson Profar was going to be there, obviously injured, or obviously on the suspended list right now. Marcelo Zuna, also struggling. And today you only muster one run against the Los Angeles Dodgers. I get it. They're the best team in Major League Baseball. But at a certain point, you just got to start putting up a fight here. You don't want to go through the season losing every single game in your first couple weeks of the year, because then you're too far behind the 8 ball. You can't make up that kind of ground to make it into the postseason. Still too early to make a judgment on the Atlanta Braves and their ability to make the postseason, but they certainly will be tumbling down my power rankings that are going to be coming out tomorrow. They're also going to be taking a little bit of a hit in my eyes as far as their ability to compete this year. I had them all the way up in that top 5 in my power rankings because I thought they had a really good offense. They were going to be getting Ronald Acuna back. Their pitching staff was held together by duct tape until they get Strider back. Now Lopez goes down. You already traded away Ian Anderson. Where exactly is the depth going to come from as well? So the Atlanta Braves are in all kinds of trouble right now. Braves on paper are also one of the best, so no excuses. I'll put it this way. The Braves on paper should be a better team that they've shown so far. I will say that their competition has been good, but they haven't put up much of a fight in these games. Call me crazy, but the Rangers could trade for Bednar while he's on the minors. Hope he finds it for us and we could get another reliable bullpen arm. True, but I wouldn't put him in that bullpen right now for Texas. I actually like where the bullpen's at right now for the Rangers. The only piece I would probably change out of there is probably Garabito, and I do think that will change once they get their starting pitching back. Bradford's due back around the end of the month, maybe into early May. Sounds like John Gray will be around the June, end of June, somewhere in there. But I do think Bradford and Corbin will be some of the first replacements on this roster. I think Kumar Rocker is very likely headed to the minor leagues at some point here early in the season to kind of get him more seasoning in the minor leagues and limit his innings, those kinds of things. But outside of Garabito, I think the Rangers bullpen is pretty decent. Luke Jackson, of course, gave up that 3-run homer in the opener, but outside of, Mariano Rivera, Trevor Hoffman, there is no closer in Major League Baseball that really, settles things down. I mean, the best guys right now in the business are Emmanuel Clase, Edwin Diaz, Devin Williams, and even those guys there at the top of the heap have their scary outings, we'll put it. We've seen them get roughed up both in the regular season and the postseason. So while you'd prefer to have somebody with a more proven track record as a closer, and I get the argument for that, I don't see how in today's game right now, how the options that the Rangers have are so much further behind than some of these other clubs. When we were just talking about David Bednar being one of the all-star closers a year or two ago, and now he's being optioned by the Pittsburgh Pirates, who need some really good bullpen help right now, and he's just not giving it to him. Just tells you where the state of the closer is in Major League Baseball. Now, I will say the starting pitching has been a lot better than expected at the beginning of the year. That I do expect will even out, and hopefully that will mean the offense gets a little bit better here in the next couple of weeks. Last couple of things I did want to touch on before we get into our final segment anyway. Lance Lynn has decided to call it a career, announcing it on his wife's podcast. Good for him. He really made some lifestyle changes this offseason, and I thought he'd been a great player for somebody to pick up and kind of eat some innings. I've been curious to see what kind of pitcher he was going into the year with the changes he's made to his body. I'm really curious to see what he could have done. However, it sounds like he's decided to call it a career and is going to hang it up. Good luck for him. Good luck to his family as far as they move into their next chapter of life. But I thought he still had some good baseball left in him. Was he still the same, ace-level pitcher that he was with the Rangers, capable of being top 3 in the Cy Young voting when he was with the Rangers? No, he wasn't going to be that pitcher again either. But I do think he could have been at least a very serviceable number 5, possibly a good number 4 innings eater type. And if he did show that elevation that we saw earlier in his career, maybe he gets up to being a good number 3 in somebody's staff. But I think he still had some good baseball in him. I just hope he's not going to have second thoughts as he goes into his retirement because of the changes he's made and just wants to see how he could have done. I think he could have stuck it out a little bit longer and probably latched on with the club. I think he just wanted to get a contract in the neighborhood of what we saw Kyle Gibson ultimately get. I just don't think he was willing to sit around and wait for that offer to come as the year went along. Welcome in, D-Rod. Good evening. I wonder if Bednar is having off-field things going on that's causing his struggles. Well, maybe. I'll put it that way. He did have some of these struggles last year as well. This is just a continuation of the same thing from last year to me. And I think the Pirates are just done with it. They made the decision very quickly. We're 5-6 games of the season. They've already decided to option their former all-star level closer. Tells you how quickly we're to make this decision. Tells you how much they believe in his stuff right now, that they're willing to go with a committee back there that includes Dennis Santana and a grab bag full of other decent-ish relievers at best. Some other news from around the league. As I mentioned, Ronaldo Lopez is going to be getting a shoulder procedure done. He'll be back after the All-Star break. So as far as the Atlanta Braves, their starting pitching was already thin entering the season. They traded away from it, sending Ian Anderson to the Los Angeles Angels. Good get for them. Somebody they can take a chance on, give some time to develop at the MLB level, and just see what he has left in the tank, and see if he can reclaim that former top prospect status. However, that means the Atlanta Braves are without another depth options. Jesse Chavez, I believe, was signed by the Atlanta Braves and just designated for assignment as well. So this could very well spell the end of his career. But I'm wondering where the depth options are going to come from for the Atlanta Braves. All right, let's go ahead and flip over to our screen here. Just kind of check in on the scoreboard from today. Rangers, we got a Maddox, the first one by the Rangers, I believe, since the stat was actually began to be recorded anyway. 1-0 win for the Texas Rangers. Again, offense, not the name of the game there. Wyatt Langford, first inning home run against Spires, is the lone run of the game. But Eovaldi was dominant throughout. Very good start for him. Mets, anyway, lose on the road to the Miami Marlins. Sandy Alcantara is pretty good there. Only ended up giving up 2 runs there. Senga with the loss for the Mets anyway. Pirates and their continued struggles offensively were blanked once again by the Tampa Bay Rays. Watch out for the Rays. Their offense is coming through a little bit stronger than I thought. So if their pitching holds up the way we all expect it to, and this offense holds up as good as it's been, they very well could find themselves in wild card contention. They always just seem to be hanging around, and this could very well be the year. None of us thought it was going to happen, and yet it still does. Yankees finally have their bats go silent a little bit. They lose 7-5 at home. To me, the game came down to the late innings. 5 runs in the 8th inning. The cardiac Diamondbacks, if you will. Another 8th inning rally for them. Their bats coming alive late. Would like to see them do so earlier in the game. They only were able to record 5 hits in the entire game while still recording 7 runs, so good on them for that. But let's try to get some more offense into the game a little earlier if you're the Diamondbacks. The pitching staff's been pretty decent so far. Would like to see them get a little bit more production offensively before you get to the final innings there. Blue Jays get a nice win there, 5-3. They are now 4-2 on the year. So if they're really trying to compete and win a wild card spot, they're off to a decent start to the season so far as that's concerned. 12 hits in the game for the Blue Jays. If you're trying to convince Vladdy to stay there long term, not a bad start for you, especially when you're going up against the Nationals. That kind of helps you there as well. King stacking racks, okay, welcome in. Langford hitting 34 home runs and a 263 average. I don't think so. I think Langford's actually going to do better than that. What's Langford got now? 2, 3 home runs, somewhere in there? I'm going to go ahead and say he gets north of 40 home runs this year. I think his average is going to be in the neighborhood of like 280, 285. We're talking about him being in contention with Corey Seager as best players on the team this year, and I think that's about where we expect him to go. Rays taking advantage of that home field, absolutely playing in a AAA ballpark. I mean, yikes. And even still, the Pirates couldn't get it done at a minor league ballpark offensively. Just yikes. Brewers, 5-0 win over the Royals. That's a nice win for them. Michael Lorenzen taking the loss for the Royals. Twins, they finally get their first win of the season, 8-3 over the White Sox. They finally came to life with their bats a little bit today. Angels continue their hot start to the season, scoring, 6 runs in the 10th and 11th innings combined. 4 runs for the Cardinals. That's a pretty crazy game to end there. But good for them to kind of keep their hot start going. Their Cinderella story lasts for a few more days. Astros bats continue to stay silent, only 1 run against the San Francisco Giants. Sure, they were going up against their ace in Logan Webb, but you'd like to see their offense start to get a little bit going there. 7 hits, though, as I guess progress for them. Guardians bats go silent as well, only 2 hits in a shutout there. The Padres continue their winning ways and are now 6-0, kind of running away with the Dodgers anyway at the top of that division. And what are we surprised by? Absolutely nothing in the Seattle Mariners offense. 1 run in support of Logan Gilbert. You remember those years when King Felix would have all the great stats in the league and would still have a losing record? The reason why the whole win for the pitcher became a non-existent stat was primarily because of Felix Hernandez. I think Logan Gilbert is going to turn in that type of season this year. 1 hit by the Mariners, 1 run total, ain't going to get it done. And we'll have to see what they do long term. I like what they did by keeping Cal Raleigh long term, but they need to get more offense in there. They do have some money coming off the books, but they're going to have to figure out their issues a little bit quicker here. Looks like the Cubs got back on the right track here after a rough end of the series anyway against the Diamondbacks. 7-4 winners over the Athletics. They pulled a 500 so far for the first 8 games of the season there. And then the last game, as I mentioned, the Dodgers, while we were live here, did get the win over the Braves. Only 3 hits in the game for Atlanta. Again, more offensive struggles for Atlanta. They are still winless on the season. Let's check out the standings as they are right now and just see who is still winless on the season. Atlanta is the only one right now, so they are the last one that has not gotten a victory so far. The only undefeated team so far, Yankees have now suffered their first loss of the year. Let's see here. Phillies are 3-1, but the only 2 undefeated teams, the Dodgers and Padres. They play Atlanta and Cleveland tomorrow. We'll have to see who ultimately stays undefeated the longest out of those two. Guess the no cell phones policy thing working for the Angels so far. I thought it was a bit of an overreaction anyway by the national media, kind of criticizing an old school approach to the clubhouse. He's got a very young group to work with there anyway. Some of the veterans on that team were part of the reason why they decided to go with the no cell phones in the clubhouse as well. They were for this kind of a thing. Does it matter a whole bunch? No. What the one thing it does do is make sure their attention is focused solely on their development while they're in the room. I mean, sure, you're going to have the guys that are going to have your clubhouse attendant is going to let you know if there's an emergency. Absolutely. I'm sure the family members have the phone number of the clubhouse attendant. Say, hey, go get me my husband. We need to take our daughter to the ER because she fell off the swing set or whatever the case may be. They'll get those calls. They'll be able to be a parent. They'll be able to take care of their family emergencies. So it's kind of ridiculous that people were so upset about it. I get it. You think everybody's an adult and everybody should be able to police themselves. But we all work out there in the real world. We know when people are doing their job and when they're not. When they're mailing it in, when they're focused on their job and when they're not. And we all realize that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be on my phone playing Candy Crush when Ron Washington is telling me what's wrong with my swing path, when he's trying to show me how to field a ground ball, when he's trying to teach me, what type of sequencing we need to do, what type or how I need to set up as a catcher. Instead of focusing on those issues, you're focusing on Candy Crush. Not saying that's what they're doing, but I think it's a little bit a little bit of an overreaction anyway by the public out there that was so against his policy to begin with. You can see the proof is in the pudding. They do seem very intent on the game. The focus is there. That's something that wasn't necessarily there when you had players like Anthony Rendon and others who were mailing it in after they had already collected their paychecks. So good on Ron Washington for staying firm with that clubhouse. I am sure they will get their cell phones back at some point. For those of us who are cell phone police, relax. They will get them back. I'm sure this is just a short-term thing, and if it does turn into an entire season thing, then hey, it's something else the team can bond over. So, again, let's just slow down with the cell phone police. Let's see here. You can give the Mariners torpedo bats and PEDs. They still find a way to be mid. Right now, they're looking up at mid. They are not a good offensive team at all. They're pretty terrible. I think if you gave them the torpedo bats, you gave them the PEDs, I think they might get to mid at that point. Not saying I'm advocating for either of those things, but I'm just saying the Mariners, they don't have much going for them offensively, and I think it's going to be a long season for them to try to score some runs. King, how much of an advantage do you think Steinbrenner Field is? Tampa is scoring, but pitching to at that field. We got to see them play better teams. True, that's kind of my thought process there. Pirates are an anemic offense. I want to see them play a better offensive team. When the Yankees go there, for instance, with these torpedo bats, if they start hitting like 20 home runs a game, and we can kind of look at it and go, okay, this is a little too Mickey Mouse. Let's go ahead and start playing our games down there in Marlins Park or wherever we have to play them, because playing in a AAA ballpark ain't cutting it anymore, Slim. So we'll have to see if they decide to change things up if that type of thing does come to pass. Alrighty, I appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Tomorrow we'll have our weekly power rankings. We'll adjust those for a lot of the changes we've seen around the league. You'll notice some big falls in the power rankings. You'll also notice some big risers in there. Some teams that you might not have been expecting. And let's go ahead and pull up here and just kind of mention here. The entire division for the AL Central is under 500. But guess who's sitting at the top right now? That's right. The Chicago White Sox, who have only allowed 13 runs against so far. Great pitching. They were not expected to be this good this year, and good development signs for them going forward. Not saying they're going to win 60 games. I'm not saying that yet. I will say that the proof is in the pudding, that there is a process, there is a game plan in place, and good job by Will Venable to get the most out of his guys early so far. Let's be honest, Ron Washington got scammed. He would be happy to get fired. No one wants to be an Angel or an Angel fan. I think Ron just wanted to be a manager again. I think he'd been getting the short end of the stick on a lot of these chases. He was the first runner-up for like 3 other jobs in the last 3 years, and ultimately finally accepted a job that would have him. And he's already comfortable with the GM there, having worked with him in Texas before. Or you guys know my feelings about Perry Manassian and how he handled Shohei Ohtani. That aside, you can see how Ron Washington was going to find that as a comfortable landing spot. hey, there's no real pressure to win. He loves to instruct. That's what he's best at, and that's what that team really needed. He has a good relationship with the front office there, and he's got an owner who's willing to spend whenever they feel an inkling of being in contention. So Ron Washington is not spring chicken, so he's going to try to get the most out of the parts he has to work with. And I do think the Angels got a great one there in Ron Washington. I just don't think they're going to stick with him once they get to a winning team again. I think they're going to try to go with some new blood at that point, which is going to suck for Ron Washington because he really deserves to have another team with to build the success there and stick with that team during that next wave of success there. How have the Cubs played 8 games already? Some teams have only played 4. Well, remember, they did play the International Series. That was 2 more games. So again, they had to kind of pad in the travel there as an advantage to playing in that International Series. I'm sure Major League Baseball said, hey, we'll give you the couple of extra days off throughout the rest of the season, but let's make sure you're in front of the cameras. You're going to be a big hit anyway overseas. Internationally, we want to keep you with eyeballs on your product right now. And as we get into the dog days of summer, maybe we'll give you an extra day off here or there and kind of space out the games a little bit better for you at that point. But that's why they played 8 games already. All right, appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Be sure to join us tomorrow for our MLB Power Ranking show tomorrow night. We'll start that one around 7 o'clock, so be sure to join us for that one. We'll get into a few of the different news items around Major League Baseball, and we'll begin talking some trades in a very, 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 very early first look at the MLB trade deadline. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys so much for all the support. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Stay safe out there, everybody.